Yeah, okay. Nice to meet you guys. Hello, hi from Sacramento. It's the late night here, so I'm a little bit sleepy and I will not speak loudly because I share the apartment with the host here, and he's already sleeping. Uh, so, uh, my presentation today is called The Future of OS2 Web Browsing, uh, because this is the most important thing I was working in the OS2 area for the many years. And yeah, so I think this is the most important and interesting topic which is out there. I will get into some details about that later. So let's then start. For those of you who are not familiar with me, a few words about myself. Uh, I'm a software developer with the background of many years, including OS2 as well. I think I started working with OS2 back in the 90s, so a pretty long time ago. And basically, the moment I started programming, I started learning OS2. And over all these years, I did a lot of things for OS2. For instance, you perhaps already know that I ported the Qt toolkit library to OS2. If you don't know what it is, the Qt toolkit is a set of libraries widely used to create GUI applications, cross-platform applications. So back in 2024, I was asked to port Qt version 3 to OS2. I don't remember the name of the company that wanted that, but yeah, they wanted to port some Windows application to OS2, and this is how it all started for me. I mean, this is how I started working professionally for OS2 to write programs for OS2. Then I ported Qt4 in, I don't remember which year it was, I think 2010 or something like that. And then back then I was working a lot with NetLabs. If you remember who they were and who they are, Adrian Gschwend, if you're here, then hi to you. And then I worked with Roderick, of course, a lot. And then I met Sylvan Scherer, and we started a company called Bitwise Works, or BWW for short. And with him and with Herwig, we did a lot of things, including Qt5 and a lot of libraries needed for Qt5, a lot of Unix libraries, and we also took maintaining the libc library from Knut Osmundsen, and we still continue to do this. So this is about Qt. I did Qt 3, 4, and 5, and started some work on Qt 6 as well, although it was never released by us at least. Yes, I already mentioned my relation to BWW, so I will skip this part. Just will tell once again that the company was started in 2013, and we did and have been doing a lot of things for OS2 since then. NetLabs and OS2 Voice, so I already mentioned as well. And besides that, if you maybe not everybody knows this bit of me, this part of me, but I'm also a political activist in Russia since 2011, and I became a member of the punk rock political performance band called Pussy Riot in 2013. And it's a long story. I will not get into details about that one, but the girls were arrested in Russia for one of their performances, perhaps the most known one, their action in Jesus Christ the Savior Cathedral in Moscow. And they got 2 years in jail. And when they were released, they were so shocked by what they saw in jail, in Russian jail, that they decided to start a media outlet telling people about what's going on in Russian jails and about police violence, about political problems and all that. And I, being an IT guy, decided to help them with that, and this is how I ended up being part of the team of one of the most famous Russian, independent Russian outlets called Media Zona, and I've been doing these things since 2014. And I'm also a musician. I have a band called Дерево, which means the tree in English. And I play music, I write songs, and do all these things. So I think it's enough about me. Let's get back to OS2. I will just say a few words about the history of web browser development on OS2, at least about my part in this history. I started working on browsers, on OS2 browsers long time ago in 2009. And it started with Firefox because someone asked me to pick up the existing port of Mozilla to OS2, and or even it was Firefox already. I don't actually. Yeah, it was already Firefox. But anyway, the active development was on hold, so I picked it up at version 17, and I was working on it till version 45, if I remember correctly. So then there was this Qt4 port, and back then it came with the WebKit engine from Apple. And I ported this as well, so that any Qt application could use the web component. And there are open source applications written in Qt, which are actually the browser applications. Doodle, for instance, and there is a number of other applications, other web browsers based on the Qt library. Then, when I was working on Qt5, it was not that many years ago. It was my last phase of active OS2 development. I had to port the Chromium engine from Google. If you don't know, Chromium is used as a base for the Chrome browser from Google, and this is the engine which Chrome uses to render pages and everything, and it includes the open source port of the JavaScript subsystem called V8 engine, and I had to port all of that as part of my Qt5 work, and this is where we got basically the most recent and the most modern version of the browser for OS2, which you know as Doodle, I guess. And it runs on the Chromium engine, and it was supporting all the standards, all the web standards that were back there in 2018. So this is my history of work on web browser development on OS2. Then in 2022, a very bad thing happened. Russia started a full-scale war against Ukraine, and this was a complete shock for me personally, and not for me, but for many Russians as well. It was I was so badly hit and depressed by this that I couldn't even work like at all, and this is the main reason why I stopped any always to work, because I literally couldn't work, and the only thing I could do for, I guess, 6 next months after March 2022 is help Mediazona solve some urgent and critical issues to have our website running, because Mediazona was completely blocked in Russia in March 2022 because we clearly spoke out against the war and criticized Putin for this a lot, and published a lot of news about what is going on the battlefield and all these things. So Putin just decided to shut us down in Russia, and there was a lot of problems related to that. I had to work a lot, as much as I could, but this was the only thing I could do back then. I had to work on a special system that helps people in Russia still read our website, even though it is completely blocked right now, and without using any VPN services, because these ones are being blocked, being very actively blocked in Russia as well nowadays. So I made this system that allows any person in Russia, any elderly person who is not familiar with the internet and all the stuff, still open our website on their simple devices without using anything besides the regular internet connection. And of course, I don't know if you know or not, but Putin changed the criminal law a lot in Russia, and now many things that are possible in sort of normal countries are forbidden in Russia, and you can go to jail for many years for things just like posting a single Instagram comment or something like that. So me and my colleagues from Mediazone, we had to basically flee Russia because it became too dangerous for us to stay there. We would certainly go to jail at some point, and this is why I had to escape. And in June 2022, I moved to Lithuania. First, I had to flee to Turkey, because I didn't need any visa for Turkey, and then I waited for my documents for Lithuania and moved there. And of course, it was a completely new country for me, and I was busy trying to settle in there and all things. And I was still living through this big trauma, my personal trauma regarding what my government and what my country did to Ukraine. And that time I also couldn't fully work on what I was working before the war. So this war is the main reason for me why I had to put all my OS2 development on pause. Basically, I was going through all this and trying to understand what to do next and things like that. And it lasted for many years, actually, before I started to get myself back. And then I realized that I have nothing to do in Lithuania anymore. And I was touring with Pussy Riot with one of their projects here in the US, and I decided to stay. And I am feeling much better in this regard than before. I think I can work again, and this is why I am a bit positive about the future of my OS2 work. So this is the next slide, right about the future of the development of the web browser. It's pretty obvious that an operating system is basically of no use if you cannot use the internet on the operating system, because almost everything nowadays is done in a web browser. And as I mentioned earlier, all the development stopped in 2022, and with Qt5 and and the version of Chromium it had back then, and it was a bit outdated even back then. So it was like from 2021 or something. And this is basically what we essentially have right now. So we have an engine, a Chromium engine, which is from 2021, and many modern websites refuse to work with this engine. I mean, this engine is available to you in Doodle, for instance. So it's clear that a new push is needed for all these things on OS2. And we basically don't have any other options than to stick to Chromium and to its recent updates in Qt in order to get the most recent version on OS2, which will open all the modern sites and will not complain about being too old and things like that. So. This brings us back to the question of having a recent version of Qt, and Qt is also pretty far from the point when I left it. It's Qt6 already, and all major Chromium updates only go to Qt6, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to stick with Qt5 because its Chromium port is really outdated and it will stop working really soon, I think. So one of the goals of the future goals of the OS2 browser development is getting a new Chromium port and getting a new version of Qt, which will be Qt6. And here we have two really big, really major issues, and I discovered them back then in 2022. The first issue is that almost all current operating systems are 64-bit, and all the changes in the code, and especially the major changes, and especially in the Chromium code, are made with 64 bits in mind, which gives us a significant problem. This problem is that OS2 is still, as you all know, 32-bit. And this is something which needs actually a lot of work. And the main problem here is that they use the full address space of 64 bits. Well, they don't use it in full, yeah, but they go beyond the 32 bits limit in almost all memory handling situations, and this needs some general solution on OS2. And while it's doable per se, the problem here is that we have to do it in user space because the kernel source code is of OS2 is sort of unavailable to us. So although many other operating systems do memory management from the kernel, we don't have such a luxury. So we have to come up with some ideas that can be realized, implemented in the user space as on the application or on the end user application level. And this adds more complexity to this test. So this is just the goal number one: how to make the code designed for 62 bits, 64 bits work on 32 bits in terms of memory addressing and things like that. And the second important goal is supporting multi-processes for browsing. This means, any modern web browser does that, each browser tab runs in its own process. This is both for security reasons and for performance reasons and for stability reasons and for all that. Because if some website gets stuck or has a bug and crashes, only one tab crashes and closes, and the rest of the tabs in the browser continue to work. This is the idea behind this multi-process tab support in all modern browsers. And this is what we need, of course, as well, because otherwise it will be really difficult to browse the web, given that many people open many tabs nowadays, and there is a lot of badly written websites that use incorrect JavaScript and just contain a lot of buggy code that hangs, that eats memory, that crashes the processes, etc. So in order to get a really usable and stable browser, we need this multi-process support. And this bit also requires a lot of tricks in order to manage memory between processes. OS2 has some support for shared memory, but given all these 32-bit limitations, and some other limitations, it's just not enough for the Chromium code as it is. So we need to come up with solutions of how to share big memory blocks between the processes, how to synchronize their management and all that. And again, we don't have any access to the kernel where it could be done much more easily. So we have to do it in the user space, which is always tricky and not very stable. So this is the major issue number two. Besides that, this is the recent V8 port, which is part of Chromium and part of Qt as well. And it basically has the same problems as Chromium itself, because it is also 64 bits oriented since a long time, and we need to do solve two problems, very same problems which I already mentioned above. And as I already told you, all of this comes in is a part of Qt6, so we need to get a new version of Qt6 up and running for all of these to work together. And last but not least, we also have to maintain our toolchain. And toolchain is a set of tools and libraries needed to build applications, compile, develop them, and etc., etc. This includes the compiler, the build system, the libc library, which is a key library for any application on any operating system, basically, including OS2, and a lot of other libs libraries, support libraries like the JPEG library, the TIFF library, whatever, compression libraries, and a lot of other things. These ones need to be updated as well, because as Chromium and V8 develop, they use newer versions of these libraries, which we don't have. So we have to do it in order to get the recent versions of these two things. Yeah, so these are the future plans. They are quite big, actually. Yeah. And yeah, a few last words. I already told you about that, but yeah, I'm staying in Sacramento for the foreseeable future, at least. And I'm getting settled in, looking for apartments, etc., etc. I'm also waiting for my cargo from Lithuania with all the things, including my OS2 machine, and because I couldn't take everything on the plane, and I had to send it all by sea, so it will arrive sometime in a month or something like that, because sailing is really slow. Yeah, and here we are basically. This is the current state of affairs. So what else I would like to say? Of course, I would like to say thanks to some people who actually picked everything up from me when I put my development on hold. And first of all is Paul Smedley, who continued working on and still continues to work on the QT6 port and does a lot of things for GCC just to keep them as recent as possible, and some other libraries as well. And CMake also contributes these bits. So then it's of course Sylvan Scherer, my partner in BWW, who does a lot of things behind the scenes. And during all these years, since 2022, he did a lot of ports, a lot of those tiny bits which are necessary to build the major pieces of software, such as Chromium and V8 and Qt6. And you can just check the GitHub repository of Bitwise, and you will see that Sylvan has finished, I don't know, maybe 20 ports this week. So even though I was not working on anything, he was trying to keep this train running and do a lot of things through all these years. And of course, it's Stephen Levine, who is also always there to help with his advices and his tremendous expertise in OS2 and all. So thank you to Stephen as well. And last but not least, Roderick Klein, who did a lot. I must stress it, a lot in order to get money for me personally. Because back then it was my sort of primary job working for OS2, and he organized a lot of efforts here to get this money from the community in a various number of ways. And in total, as you can see, he managed to collect 55,000 euros over, I don't know, 5 years or something like that, or maybe 4, I don't remember exactly. So this was basically my salary and everything, and this is what allowed me to work on OS2 really closely and almost full time before the war. Yeah, this is about the situation before the war mainly. And you can see the QR code for the OS2 voice.org website, where you can donate and help collecting more money for the future work of myself and of Sylvan and of Paul and of everybody else who is willing to contribute to OS2 and do all this hard work, given how far behind OS2 compared to other platforms. And the last thing I would like to tell you today, I mentioned that I am part of the Media Zona team. And once again, Media Zona is one of the few Russian medias, independent medias, who tell you the real information about what's going on in Russia, and in particular what's going on the battlefield and how the war is going. And a few months ago, we did a really crazy project. We collected, with the help of volunteers and many other people from Russia, we collected the largest database of Russian casualties in this war, how many soldiers have actually died fighting for nothing. It's over 100,000 confirmed deaths, despite what Putin says and everything. It's at least 100,000 dead men, dead Russian men who were attacking and fighting against Ukraine, and yeah, they are already dead. And the actual number of casualties is, we all guess, much more. But yeah, this is one of our major works, this collecting this database, and it's available online. Everyone can check it. So these are just the confirmed deaths of Russian soldiers in this war. Yeah, and this thing is very important for me personally, of course, because I'm Russian. I do care about what my country does. And if you can and want to support our media outlet, you are more than welcome, because we are in exile now. We are completely community funded, and basically, if we are shut down, there will be one real voice less in the landscape of Russian informational space. So it's really important to keep us alive. I work for Media Zona almost for free right now, because yeah, these are the hard times for us. So please support us as well. This is a QR code for the donation page. And it was a long talk, but yeah, it's finished now. I told you everything I wanted to. Thank you very much for being with me. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome. And if Roderick has something to add, he's more than welcome as well. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot.
You can hear me, Dmitrii?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay.
There's a delay, but yes, I can.
Okay, the audio isn't working on the YouTube stream. Sorry about that. We tested it last night, but famous last words. If you have any questions for Dmitrii, here's a mic. Thank you, Dmitrii. By the way, I just had one technical remark. This code for this multi-process mode that the browser is using, is that also impacting Double when running in single process mode? Is that also one of your suspicions? That it's right?
Yes, because the Chromium guys themselves, they don't actually support this single process mode since long time, and I don't think they debug it a lot, so it's buggy and unstable, and they don't care about it at all, I guess. So this might be the reason why Double is not stable in single process mode. Yeah, because nobody actually uses it. Everybody uses multi-process mode.
Okay. Jeroen, the stream, the audio still isn't working? Okay. Are there any questions here? Oh, Keith. If you have any questions, just wait for the mic, because then it's also recorded and the people can hear it.
Hi, Dmitrii.
Hello, hi.
Keith Merrington speaking. I was wondering, in OS2 we have thunking, which means going from 16-bit to 32 and back.
Yes.
Is there any possibility we could use a thunking to go to 64 bits for some code? Maybe a stupid idea, but...
Actually, I don't know this part that well to answer this question, but I don't really think it's a way to go, because again, we don't have access to the kernel code, so maybe something could be done there. if we had it, but I don't know how much it can be hacked in a hex editor to make any use of this technique for 62 bits. So I just don't know. Maybe Steven could comment more on that, but I cannot.
Just an idea.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting one. I will ask Steven what he thinks about it.
Roderick here. I do have a slight idea about it, because you and I have been talking for years together with Steve also on how the kernel could potentially use more memory. But the big stumbling block in all of this is the fact that all of the memory allocation for applications is simply limited to 32 bits. So even if you could get something like physical address extension to work, the problem is that you need to bolt on a whole bunch of APIs on the kernel so that it could actually allocate the memory above 4 gigabytes. That's where it is every time runs out of the track. You basically, you probably need to patch about 15-20% of the kernel probably, and a whole bunch of other things. So what a lot of people don't know is that in Arc OS there's a RAM drive. But what the RAM drive does is that if you use the RAM disk to use memory above 4 gigs, for every transaction it effectively holds the CPU, switches it to physical address extension, then writes the data, reads the data, and then switches it back. So you are using that high memory, but OS...
that they can go beyond 32 bits in a single run, but it's not possible with any kind of windowing solution.
And there's another problem, is that with every transaction that you do this, you have this switching back and forth. Now a memory page is 4 kilobytes in size. So if you every time need to do this switching back and forth to PAE mode, and you could use the memory above, it would also have a pretty high performance hit, because every time it has to go through about 10-20 assembly instructions for every read and write. It's fast, but it comes at a cost. And then still, the total amount of memory that OS2 can address, even if you have the memory above it, it doesn't work like expanded memory in DOS, where you can say, hey, I've got 2 megabytes of extra memory. The memory goes through a page frame with expanded memory, but the problem is that the OS2 kernel still can't allocate more than 4 gigs of addressable memory space. So even if you get the memory on top of it, the only thing I think that we once discussed was the idea if you could have some of the memory written to a file, but that would require quite some large hacks in the code. And the question is if that...
and it would also slow everything down, of course. So that's another issue here. And of course, you can do it in the Chromium code, like sort of switch back to 32 bits in many places, but it's just a lot of work for a single person, or even for a group of 10 developers to do things like that. And although we don't have that many developers on OS2 who could actually actively work on that, so we need to come up with something else with some other hacks. But
there was one other thing that Steve mentioned to me many moons ago, but we first need to get a more stable Qt6 out, because the current Qt5 is, it's end of life. There's still security patches for it, but they're not adding. That's also one other thing. Other people that will be viewing the stream back, I don't think we're going to put any effort into Qt5 currently, because we simply don't have the resources to patch it up. We need to make rough choices. We can do Qt5, that's great, but that's just another couple of weeks of worth of work. So, are there any other questions in the room here?
Hello, Dmitrii. This is Andreas here speaking, and I have thank you for your work on the political issues. And I'm also following the conflict close. Probably real death toll is about 500,000 and another 500,000 heavily or lesser disabled Russians. But that's on the one side. On the others,
you can estimate the numbers we've got, like for real, to get these
yet you
numbers
have confirmed names. I think that's what you're talking about. 150,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Confirmed deaths.
Yes. The other issue is GCC 14 and new versions, and also we don't have that toolchain LLVM 20 introduced some rather idiotic optimizations, and they remove pointer checks. And this doesn't bring lots of performance, but you can make those pointer checks in the code, but if they are not perfectly then they are just dropped off, and for the 32-bit operating system this is even more problematic than for other platforms. So I just wanted to inform you and other developers like Paul Smedley that you probably need those newer toolchains, but they do dangerous things for our platform and make work harder.
Yes, it actually sounds similar to those two major issues that I already mentioned, because the current developers have just switched completely to 64 bits, and they think 64 bits now, and this is why they are doing this. Well, from our perspective, crazy ideas, but I can understand them, of course, because all hardware is 64 bits nowadays. So this is another just another problem of the same scale, I would say. Interesting. I haven't heard about that yet because I didn't touch this code for a long time. But thank you for letting me know. We should think about that as well.